What up? So today I'm gonna show you how to print out whatever image you want and hydro dip it onto anything. What up? So here's the thing. I wanted to figure out how to print out my own custom sheet for hydro dipping. So in a previous video I did that, and I hydro dipped some planners, like little skulls, and also my face. And it looked cool, but the design, it like melted off, it like got warped and didn't stick. So that's what we need to figure out, is how to print off your own custom sheets and get the design to hold its place on your object. And also I wanted to figure out how to hydro dip anything. So we're gonna redo the skulls, and I have some Vans I want to try out, and AirPods. Are AirPods waterproof? So two problems, I guess. One, we got to figure out how to get your own designs printed out and make them stick so you can show off your custom things. And two, how to get those AirPods waterproof. If I can hydro dip these AirPods and they work afterwards, we'll give them away. So hopefully I don't mess it up. And before we get going, let's take a moment to appreciate how nice my hair's growing back from that fiasco a while ago. So yeah. Cool, anyways, let's go. So I thought I'd be able to just print out whatever I wanted, then rip off the white protective backing, put the film on the water, let it react to that water, then add a Hydro-Dip activator, and then I'd be able to dip it and it'd be good. But because the ink in my printer is a dye-based ink, it just dripped right off as it dried because it was still gooey. So we're gonna try that again. So first thing I need to do is repot these plants. And I took some acetone and just rubbed off all that Hydro-Dip film stuff. I did that to all three of them until they looked nice. The next thing I forgot to do on that first try was coating it with like a primer. And I just used this spray paint that was a paint and primer and thought that might work. So your film needs to be waterproof and the ink needs to be waterproof. Mine wasn't, because when I licked my finger and put my finger on the film, the ink just rubbed off. So I thought maybe if I took some clear spray paint and put a coat on that on top, maybe that would work. Because now it's waterproof. So let's test that out. I also cut a hole in my table so I could put a camera down there and get a bottom view of what was going on, and that made for some fun shots. I also used a fish tank just because it was clear on the bottom and on the sides so I could get some good angles, but really you could do this in whatever you want. The water should be from 80 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, but if you don't have a thermometer, that feels like warm to the touch but too cold for a bath. Yeah. And the film has that white protective sheet that you just peel off, and then you put the film face up with the ink side on top. After the film is sat for like 30 seconds, you're gonna spray it with this Hydro-Dip activator, and you'll see the film like turn liquidy, and that's when you know you're good to go. But because I used that spray paint, it didn't really turn liquid, and when I was pushing it through, it kind of felt more like I was pushing it through a bag, if that makes sense. And kind of with water, it dropped, it was a bunch of issues. But I was hoping that spray paint was gonna work and make the ink waterproof so that this would hold its image. And so far it looked good. So we're gonna put that away to dry. And I had my friend print out a sheet on his laser printer, and that uses toner, so it's naturally like waterproof. So you don't have to use spray paint or anything, and I was hoping that that was gonna work. So I guess we'll give it a try. So place it on the surface of the water, let it react to the water, add the activator, and dip it. You kind of have to like roll it to get these objects that are round. Round objects kind of suck. I think I talk about that later, but we'll see. I also rinsed it off with some warm water afterwards to kind of get rid of the gooey film and clean up the tank so I could be ready for the next dip. And while that dries, I want to print out another film on my inkjet printer, and the film has like a glossy clear side and then the white side, and you want to print on that glossy side. I didn't know which side my printer printed on, so I put in a normal paper and just marked it with an X, printed out a test sheet. The X turned out on the back, so I knew that I had to put my film face down to get it to print on that clear side. So I did that, printed another one out. I wanted to try to figure out a way to use these inkjet printers to print out the films because that'd be super convenient. But once you have the film printed out, next thing you're gonna do is add tape just on the edges. What this does is it helps your image stay in place, because when you add the activator, it turns liquidy and you don't want it like floating off. And so yeah, I also clean up the edges just so it looks nice. That's not really necessary, but cool. So once again, I added a coat of that clear spray paint on top to try to make that ink waterproof. And this time, what we're gonna do, instead of putting the film face up, we're gonna put it face down and see if that makes the image stay. But because that ink side is waterproof because of the spray paint, the film wasn't reacting to the water, so I put some on top, hoping that would make it work. Added some activator, but the water on top made it sink. I tried anyways, and it just wasn't working. It was like I was pushing into a bag, and then it also wasn't on the surface, so there was like a layer of water in between the film, so I could just pull right off and nothing really sticked. So I don't know if the inkjet printers work, but we're gonna let those dry and we'll check back on them later. And for now, I wanted to make a custom design with like my Schmood logo with leopard print. And one important step when working with words or logos, you need to flip the image so it reads like a mirror. I also made a custom little camo with my logo in there. Changed it so it looked like camo, repeated the pattern, and tried to pick a color. I also thought it would be funny if I hydro dipped my face onto something. So I asked you guys on Instagram what I should do, got a bunch of great answers, and then I asked what color I should do for the camo, and we're gonna go with that one. It's cool. The skull planners are now dry, and the film that we printed on the laser printer worked, but the one on the inkjet did not. So now we know. After seeing your guys' comments, I thought AirPod would be funny to do, so we cut that bad boy open. And I also wanted to do some vans, so that'd be cool. And I only wanted to do parts of the van, like I only wanted that little swoosh done. And so what you do is you just cover up with like masking tape the parts that you don't want to be hydro dipped. So I covered that up and cut out the little squish, and then also decided the what are these called? The shoelace holes? I thought the shoelace holes would be cool, and the little band across. So I did that all to one shoe and taped off the second shoe, added a clear primer, and then let it dry. Also got some silicone earplugs to waterproof the AirPods, but also they came with a free tattoo, so I had to get them. And we're just gonna plug up the holes and hopefully this works. So I added some tape over the top just as a safety precaution and cut it off so that I could close it. Then added some more putty to the charging port there. Took a razor to cut off the excess, and then did the same thing to the actual AirPods. So once I got those all plugged up, I added some tape to that bottom part where it charges inside the case, and then taped off the hinge on the case. And my hope with this clear primer is that it will also cover cracks and help it be waterproof. So we let those dry and started on those vans. I only used half of the sheet of the film because I was only going to be doing like half the shoot at a time. You want to dip your stuff slow and try not to get air bubbles. And then once you have it in as far as you want it, just shake the thing you're dipping and pull it out. And I had to empty all the water out of the shoe, and that first half looked pretty good. So I cleaned out the tank, used a paper towel for that, and then added the next film and dipped that second shoe. Then I dipped the second half of that first shoe, and in between dips I try to dry off the side that I was dipping and like give it a little bit of time to dry, just hoping that will help the film stick to the parts I want better. So I put the shoes away to dry, and time to try out the AirPods. Ooh, with that beautiful mug. I tried to dip it at an angle, then the image didn't match up perfectly, and like I said, I'm so shaky, but I think it's working. So I clear off all the film around it, pull it up, and time to set that aside to dry. Next what we're gonna do are the AirPods. So I just cut out little pieces of film to match the size of the AirPods and dipped them on in. I was holding it at the part that was taped off, that way hoping to make it so my fingers didn't block off any of the spots where I wanted it to be hydro dipped. Alright, so we're gonna let those sit aside and dry. And then the last thing I did was this face on the bottom of my shoe. And those are hard because there's a lot of places to get air bubbles, but I also covered it with a bag to help protect the top. And I tried to dip it at an angle and really slowly, trying to not get air bubbles, but we'll see. So then I did the second shoe, and when I put the film in, it got some water on top. And so I tried to re-put it in, and then it broke. So I had to do that again. This time my thought was that if I dipped the shoe at even more of an angle and even more slow, maybe that would help even more with the air bubbles. But in doing that, I kind of missed my mark and just got like the side of my face, which it's still fun. All right, we're done with that water. So now with the shoes all dry, I'm just gonna add a coat of this matte clear, and that's gonna help protect it from water. And then I have to do the same thing to the AirPods. Then once that all dries, I'm ready to take off the tape. There were some spots where the spray paint, the top layer spray paint, was trying to rip off like the entire hydro dip, so I had to be a little careful. But overall, I thought it looked good. So I just have to do that in the second shoe and add some shoelaces. The AirPods were a little more tricky, but for the most part, I just took some of that earplug stuff and smushed it against the other earplug stuff to pull it out. On the spots where it has been covered with spray paint, I had to like cut the outside layer to get the spray paint layer off, and then I could use the putty to pull it out. So same thing with the AirPods. Cut off that top layer, and it seemed to work pretty well. Hopefully it was sealed up enough that it was waterproof and I didn't ruin these. But the light's on, so that's a good sign. Alright, so I feel like the skull planter turned out pretty good. It's hard to hydro dip like totally round objects, because like here on the back it's white. So that's one thing I learned. Also, you have to use a printer that either uses pigmented ink or toner. This is a inkjet printer, so it did not work. It's water soluble, so it just dripped away when it dried. And honestly, I think my favorite thing are the bottom of my shoes. There were a bunch of air bubbles as well. Maybe if I dipped it slower and more on an angle, I would have felt better. But I'm also really pumped with how the Schmood leopard print turned out. Because I had to do it one half at a time, there is like kind of a weird seam on the front and back. But I don't feel like it was super noticeable. When I showed Romney, she told me I should dip the aglets. And so that's what we're gonna do real quick. That's honestly such a rad touch. It might be my favorite thing about the leopard print now. I don't know if you can see them, but pretty rad. And as for the AirPods, I did the face, and I put it right there on the seam. I did that so I can make it talk. And then the AirPod itself, I thought it looked pretty good. There is a white spot, but it's on that side that's not gonna be seen, so I'm not too worried about it. But now to see if I didn't ruin them. Just kidding, that reaction's fake. I knew they worked because I had to sync them to my phone and everything. But that does mean I'm going to be giving away. And we're gonna do this giveaway a little differently than how I usually do it. What I have you guys do is share this video. So like below the video, there's that little button where you can either like copy the URL, you can share with a friend, you can message it someone, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and then leave a comment. And I'll pick one of you guys randomly to get these dumb AirPods. So cool. So on my channel, I do a whole bunch of different kind of projects. If you haven't seen mine, you should go check them out. But one of the more frequent questions that I get is, where did I learn how to do all of the stuff that I do? And to be honest, I learned most of it from just looking things up on the interweb, which is a perfect segue to today's sponsor. Skillshare is super rad. If you don't know what Skillshare is an online learning community where millions of people have like come together to learn more and take the next step on their creative path. They have a bunch of super rad classes on a huge array of different topics, including design, photography, video, freelancing, and a bunch more. So Skillshare offers classes designed for real life, meaning you can learn and grow creatively on your own time without putting your life on hold. So here are some examples of Skillshare's new classes. There's how to bring creativity into your interior design, Instagram-worthy photography, and how to combine visuals and type in like a poster. So Skillshare is also super affordable, especially when you compare it to like in-person classes or workshops. You can join Skillshare for a year for less than $10 a month. So I'm sure with this New Year's, you guys have a bunch of resolutions and whatnot. And so why don't you make one of those resolutions to learn a new skill or better something that you already do know? And Skillshare has made that super possible for you guys. You can join right now and get your first 2 months free. And I put a link in the description below. So, cool.
Subscribe.
So I think it'd be fun to do another Hydro Dip video. So be sure and leave a comment of what you think I should Hydro Dip next and what picture you think I should put on it. So yeah, subscribe if you want.